Hey, this is Joe from SoFly, and in this video, we are going to import WordPress users from an Excel file. So to get started, we'll go over here to All Import and select New Import. And then we have three options. We can choose to upload a file. We can download a file, for example, from a URL. You know, if I have this file in Dropbox or something like that, I could put the URL here. And then every time I run this import, it's going to download the latest version of the file and update my site. Or, you know, if that file is hosted on an FTP server, I can just put the FTP information here, and it's going to pull that file from the FTP site. I can also select use existing file and select a file that I've previously uploaded for a different import. In this case, I'll select upload a file, and we'll go with this one. So let's take a quick look at that file. So here it is, and you can see it's pretty standard, right? What you'd expect. First name, last name, email address, job title, department, hired date, LinkedIn, allergy information, and a performance review. So you can see here we have some standard WordPress stuff like email and name, but then we have some custom fields like department and the hired date and like their allergy information and stuff like that. So we'll have to use custom fields for some of this data. Okay. So right here we have some other options to consider. So we have new items and existing items. The difference between these two is fairly subtle. So with an existing items import, we can import users and try and match them to existing users on our site, right? Regardless how they were created. So if somebody created their own user account, if I run another import, I can match the data in my file to those users, right? And I can modify them, delete them, update them, or even add new ones, right? You can also, add new items with an existing items import. The difference is how we're matching them. So with existing items, we can match anything on the site, but with new items, we can also match users, right? We can run this import later. We can update the users that we've already created. The difference is with a new items import, we can only touch users that were created by this import, okay? We can't touch users if they were created via some other means, right? We can't remove users that were created with a different import or created manually or something like that, right? The difference here, if you want to read more about it, we have a lot of documentation on our site about existing items imports, recurring imports, things like that. Check out our documentation, check out our YouTube channel for more information on those. In this case, we're going to stick with the default new items, and we're going to create new users for each record in my file, right? You can select what you want to import into here. And, if I had WooCommerce installed on this site, I could import WooCommerce products, reviews, things like that. We have taxonomies. You can really import anything like real estate listings, all of it. In this case, we're going with users. All right, so let's continue to step 2. And then over here, we have our file that's been processed by WP All Import. So we just want to check to make sure that it's been imported and detected correctly, that the file itself has been detected, right? So it picked up all of the column headers from my file, and everything looks good. And then we can see, these are all of each individual records that are going to be imported, right? Everything looks good. And then down here, we have some filtering options. So for example, let's say I just want to import everybody where the performance review is less than 7. So we can add a rule for that. Then you can see here, we have 8,345 users. If we select apply filters to XPath, now we have 3,575, right? So we have 3,575 people where the performance review is less than 7. And we can add more filters. So we can say, okay, let's get everybody that's in the sales department also. Select add filters to XPath. And there we go. So we have 307 people with a bad performance review that are in the sales department. Right, so we can add filters, as many of these filters as we want, combine them in as many different ways as we want. Like let's say allergies equals peanut. There we go. So 5 people. Okay, so we can add these filters and combine them, with and or statements, however we like. In this case, let's just import everybody from our sales department. And when we click at apply filters to XPath, it's going to change this XPath statement. Now, you don't need to know what XPath is or how it works to use WPL import. We take care of all of this for you. And the way that WPL import works is when you upload a file, it's going to change that file. No matter what kind of file it is, it's going to change it to XML because our import engine uses that under the hood. And the reason we do that is so that we can do this kind of targeting. So you can use this builder here to create your filters, or, and then just click apply filters and it's going to create the XPath statement for you. If you know XPath, you can write your own XPath statement here, right? It's very powerful, but again, optional. You don't need to know how it works or even really what any of these words mean, right? You don't need to know what XPath is. But if you do, you can do a lot of interesting stuff. Okay, so we're going to run this import. We're going to import our whole sales department. And we have 732 people. And let's go. We'll continue to step 3. All right, so over here on the left, this is our import template. Over here on the right, this is our data from our file, right? Just our first record. So we'll drag in our first name, and there's our first name done. We'll drag in our last name, the login. This is going to be the string that contains the user's username for logging in, right? So let's just make that easy on them. Let's go first name and last name, like that, and email. We have an email field here. There we go. And the password, we're going to leave the password blank. And then what WPL import is going to do is it's going to generate a password for them automatically. And then this user can then log in for the first time using the forgot my password link. They just give their email address and then they get an email and then they can create a new password, right? Now, if you want to import the password for some reason, if you're a crazy person and you have a field in here with a password and clear text, you can put the password in there. If you want to start with a standard default password, you could just type something, this in, and then everybody's password is just going to be default password. Or if you're, have the passwords already in a secure manner, like let's say you have a WordPress site and you want to import those users, you want to migrate them into this site over here, there's a secure way to do that to keep the password the same. And you would do that with WPL export. You would just go to WPL export, create a migration file for the users. And in that file, it's going to have a field for their password. And that field is going to be the hashed version of the password. Totally secure. If somebody who shouldn't have it gets their hands on the file, all they see is the hashed version. They can't do anything with that, right? But after we run the import, that user will be able to use their same password on the new site. So if you're interested in migration for users or anything else, check out our documentation, check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot of information on how that works. In this case, we're going to leave this blank and generate passwords for our users. Okay, now over here we have some other user info for the role. Now by default, everybody is going to be subscriber on the site. So I'm just going to type subscriber for this import, and all these people are just going to be imported as subscriber. If I had some field over here that I wanted to use as the role, and I'm using a user role editor plugin or something else, then we would just drag in the data from our file over here into that field. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, next up we have nickname. It says the user's nickname. It defaults to their username, so we can just leave that blank if we want to. But I want to make it a little bit nicer, and I want to add a space, right? Because there's no space in their username. All right, and then we'll use the same thing for the display name. So Control-C, Control-V, there we go. And the description. So we don't have a description field here, but we can create one. So this person is the VP of Quality Control in the sales department, right? So you can see that this person, this statement here would say VP of Quality Control in the sales department. For this user over here, the description is going to be technical writer in the sales department, etc. Okay. Registered. This is the date that the user was registered. We can just leave this blank and it'll be today. Or we can use, we have the hired date, so we can just drag over the hired date in here, right? Up to you, however you want to do that. Nice name. This is a string that contains a URL-friendly name for the user. It'll be used in the URLs for the site. Defaults to the user's username. That's fine with me. URL, we can add in the LinkedIn profile URL over here, right? And that works. And then our custom fields. So WPL import will automatically detect any custom fields that we have. So let's see detected fields. And we have a bunch. And we can actually see that we have the fields I've already created on the site. So what I did was Let's check this out first. So if not all fields were detected, manually create a user and fill out each field you want to import data to. Then create a new user, then create a new import, and WPL import will display these fields for import below. So what I did was I went here into ACF and I added a field group called job info, right? And it has all of the information necessary to run this import, right? We have first name, last name, email, job title, department. So we have job title, department, hired date, allergies, performance review. So I just added those fields in, and then I said show this field group if the user role is equal to subscriber. So I created this first. Then I went over here to all users. I created a new user called test, and I just added in the dummy information over here, right? I just filled it in, clicked save, and that lets WPL import automatically detect these fields over here. Now there's a bunch of stuff I'm not going to be importing. These are custom fields associated with users. Plugins will add some of these. Some of these are included in WordPress by default. Okay, so I'm going to remove the ones I don't want to import. Okay, so we have job titles. So you notice we have two job title fields here. This is something created by ACF with the underscore in front of it, and you can tell the value here is kind of like just nonsense. So I don't want those. So I'm going to remove all of these dummy fields that I don't need. All right, there we go. So these are the 5 fields I'll be importing to. And now we just need to replace these values. Get rid of these, and we need to replace them with the data from my file. All right, so job title, drag in job title, then departments, hired date, allergies, and performance review. There we go. And we're done. Now, let's say I needed to process some of this data with PHP, for example, let's say I wanted to add something for allergies, right? So that if there's no allergy information, it says none instead of just a blank field. So we'll add brackets, and then everything in these brackets is going to be processed as PHP. Then I can just call a function like I would in PHP. Call my function no allergies, open it with parentheses, and close it. So everything in these brackets will be processed as PHP. Here's my function name, and then everything inside these parentheses is going to be passed into my no allergies function. And then down here, we have the function editor, right? So what I can do is I can just declare my function, call it no allergies, and then call this allergies, open it up, and then do something, return none if null, and then close this out. So what this is going to do is it's going to take the allergy information here, pass it into this function, and then this function is going to, actually have to write the code that would, like, if there's nothing, then return none. If there is something, return it back. Writing this code is pretty simple. You can do it with ChatGPT. We also have a lot of code snippets on our website at wplimport.com in the documentation. If you don't know PHP, don't worry. You can still use WPL import, obviously. If you are very bad at PHP, or if you want to learn, this is a great way to learn. You're just writing really simple little functions and passing them around, passing data through them. Very powerful. You can do a lot of stuff with this. So in this case, we're just going to pass in the allergy information, and if it's blank, it's blank. All right. So that is my import setup. Again, if you want to learn more about PHP functions, check out our YouTube channel, check out our documentation. This is what makes WPL import as powerful as it is. All right. So import is all set up. Let's continue to step 4. And now we need to set up our unique identifier. So we can just click auto detect, and then that's going to basically, what WPL import is going to do is it's going to look inside of this file, and it's going to say, okay, what are the unique fields, and what makes each one of these things unique? And in this case, I don't have anybody with the same first name and the same last name, so it said, okay, just use first name, last name. However, I also want to add an email just to be safe. If I run this import later, maybe, this is a big company, it's bigcorp.com. That's a big hint that it's a big company. And maybe there's 2 people with the same name, right? So we don't want their user information being confused by WPL import. So I'll drag an email over there and we're good to go. And what this is used for is this is just used so WPL import knows that these two records are different, right? And if I run this import later with a different file, it needs to know, okay, well, what's unique? Like, what is a unique record in here? If there's two rows with the same information, you know, the same email address, that's the same user. And likewise, if I run this import later, how does it know which file, which users are which, right? So that's how we do that here. Usually, in the vast majority of cases, just click auto detect. And if you have a problem during your import, WPL import will tell you, and then you can come back here and you can mess with this field. All right, so next up we have when WPL import finds new or changed data. Okay, so when we run this import later, if we choose to, one of three things is going to happen for every record. Either it's a new record that I added to this file after, since I ran the import last time, right? In which case I need to tell WPL import, do I want to create a new user or no? The next thing that might happen is it's the same user, but something changed. Maybe this person has a new job title now. What do I want to do? Do I want to update the information on the site with the new data or not? And if I do want to update it, which data do I want to update? Do I want to update everything? Or, for example, just like one of the fields? For example, job title. So up to you. This really only has to do with running this import on a recurring basis. And this video is mostly focusing on, or actually only focusing on this one-time import of users, right? The last thing we have to decide is what happens if something is removed from the file. Do we want to remove that user? Do we want to delete them? Do we want to change a custom field, change it, set fired to yes or something like that? Up to you. Again, this is about recurring imports. If we run the import later, we have a lot of videos and documentation on this. Check those out if this is something you need to do. In this case, we're just going to stick with the defaults. Then finally, we have over here, email notifications for imported users. Do we want to block email notifications or not? If you unselect this, when I run the import, all of these email addresses are going to get an email that says welcome to my WordPress site. They're just going to get the default WordPress welcome email. Maybe I want to change that. Maybe I want to send them a custom email. Maybe I don't want to send them any email notifications. Maybe I want to send them email notifications about their user account, but not from this import, right? Totally up to you. My only advice is going to be that if you uncheck this, run a test first, and then make sure that the email is formatted how you want it to be. And if you have this checked, and it's very important to you that the emails don't get sent, for example, if I was actually running this import for a big corporation, what you want to do is you want to test it first. Now, this generally works, but there's some email plugins that you can install that may break it. We try and fix it when we see it, but WordPress, it's an open source platform, and there's a lot of plugins out there and a lot of custom code that does stuff in weird ways, that does stuff in non-standard ways that we can't predict. So there are some cases, some tools out there, and some code that you could write that would get these emails to be sent even with this setting enabled. So if it's very important to you that these emails don't get sent, my advice, just run a test import first to an email address that you control and just make sure the emails are not being sent. Okay? So I'm just going to leave this checked. We're good to go. We have scheduling options. You can run any import or export on a schedule, right? And you can set it to run every day, every hour, once a week, whatever you want to do, once a month. And then WPL import is going to take the latest version of that file and then run the import. And then it's going to use these settings up here to determine what to do with the data. There's no point scheduling this import because I'm uploading the file, right? So if I set it to run every week, well, I've already uploaded the file. So I have to manually go in and change the file, right? If you want to use the scheduling options, you have to use the download from URL feature in step 1. And the reason is because then that way it can pull down a fresh version of the file to run the import with new data. Very interesting. You can do a lot of really good stuff with the scheduling options we have. Check out our YouTube channel, check out our documentation. We have a lot of good stuff on that. Then we have some advanced settings down here. These are mostly debugging settings, splitting files, records per iteration, increased speed. If you're having a problem with server timeouts, you can come in here and check. You can also just email us at our support team, wplimport.com/support. We'll be able to help you out. And these are some of the settings that we'll use. Also, a stream reader versus XML reader. You don't really need to worry about these. They're just if you're having problems with your import. And then we have import only specified records. So for example, if I just wanted to import the first 10, and the 15th, or, just the 15th, there's a whole little syntax here that you can determine that you can kind of limit your import to do some testing over here without using the full-fledged filtering options that we have. All right, so I'm going to leave this blank. We're just going to import all 732 users in my sales department, and we'll give this a friendly name. We'll call this job info import, and this friendly name is going to be the label used for the import on the manage import screen. Okay, so let's continue. This is our confirmation page. Everything looks good, and we'll confirm and run the import. And this will take a few minutes, probably less. We'll just let it run and come back when it's done. All right, import is complete. Let's check out our users. All right, you can see here we have everybody imported. Let's open up this first one. Everything looks good. We got all their name information in there. We have their email address, their LinkedIn. This person's a food chemist in the sales department. Every big corporation absolutely needs a food chemist in their sales department, preferably more than one. So it's important. It's good that they have one. And then down here we have their job title, department, hire date came in okay, allergies, and their performance review. So that is all it takes to import users into WordPress from Excel using WP All Import. Check out our YouTube channel. We have a lot more videos, and our documentation. We have a ton of content on imports and exports for everything, right? With WPL import, you can import into any custom post type with any file. And with WPL export, you can export any custom post type to any file type. And you can use both of them together to migrate data from one WordPress site to another, or to actually bulk edit data, right? So for example, if I wanted to take all the users on my site and change all the job titles or change some of the job titles, you go into WPL export, run an export for the fields you want to change them in Excel, and then go into WPL import and change it. And all of the settings will be set up for you automatically. Very simple process, very easy to do. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.